I signed over the deed to my house in less than 15 minutes. A notary named Seth smiled at me from across the bank table like I was doing something noble. Maybe I was. I'd owned that little bungalow on Copley Avenue for 21 years, painted the shutters myself. Changed out every knob and fixture, but my daughter had a dream. And I had equity. Haley hugged me hard when I handed her the check. "This changes everything," she said, blinking fast. Like gratitude might spill out too easily if she let it. I believed her. I wanted to believe that love and sacrifice still held the same weight in her world as they always had in mine. Miles nodded from the other side of the table. "We'll get you moved in tonight. Corinne, it'll be cozy for a while, but it's home for a while." I slept on their pull-out couch, under a fleece blanket that smelled faintly of baby lotion and stale crackers. Emma was 18 months old and often sick with something new. I helped where I could diaper duty, frozen casseroles, midnight laundry. Haley worked late most nights, building client lists and tinkering with her online wellness store. Miles managed logistics, whatever that meant. Their kitchen filled with sticky notes and supplement samples. I made myself small around it all. When Emma started daycare and Haley's launch date approached, I offered to take over mornings to ease the load. "I've got time," I said one day while folding onesies on their kitchen counter. "That's sweet." "Mom," she said, barely glancing up from her laptop. "But we've got our own rhythm now. You being here is already a lot." It stung, but I told myself she was tired. I remembered how I snapped at my own mother once when I was sleep-deprived and underpaid. But my mother never sold her house to save my plans. The tipping point came on a Tuesday. Rainy. Miles had left early. Haley sat on the floor feeding Emma mashed bananas while scrolling her phone. I'd been up since 6 washing bottles and wiping counters. My back ached. I stood in the doorway and said, "I think I need to look at places to stay. Just temporarily." She didn't look up, just dabbed Emma's chin with a napkin. "That's probably for the best. Things are just chaotic right now." That word again, chaotic. Like I was the mess she couldn't clean up the next morning. I packed my suitcase and trash bag of clothes into the Civic. Haley handed me a bag of snacks and a tight-lipped smile. "Let us know if you need anything." "Okay." I nodded, but I didn't. I pulled away from their townhouse and didn't look back. I parked that night behind a closed-down appliance store, wrapped myself in 2 coats, and tried to convince myself that it was just for a night, maybe 2. But even on the first night, I knew. It wasn't temporary if no one was waiting for you to come back. The Civic became a second skin. I parked it carefully each night, always facing out, never under bright lights, always near an exit. Walmart was generous as long as you moved before the morning shift. The library lot gave me just enough anonymity to blend in, one of many older women who wandered in early, sat at the computers all day, and left before dusk. I had a system. Canned soup from the dollar store, opened with a pocket knife and heated over a portable coil I bought with my last birthday money. Plastic grocery bags for laundry, tucked under the passenger seat. A gas station bathroom near the freeway that stayed clean enough to wash my hair if I timed it between trucks. I brushed my teeth with my feet still in the car. I wrapped myself in the coat I used to give Haley on chilly field trips. The sleeves now frayed and pilling. That coat had been in the back of my closet for years. Funny how quickly something forgotten becomes a lifeline. Haley texted often, not to ask where I was, but to update. 2 new clients this week. Emma just said, kombucha. Can you believe it? Miles and I are thinking, baby number 2. I'm exhausted already, Lowell. Every message arrived like a postcard from a country I no longer had a visa for. I responded politely at first. Heart emoji. So proud of you, but never. Can I come by? Never. Are you okay? Once, I typed out, it's cold tonight, then deleted it. Instead, I kept a journal. Nothing profound, just where I'd parked. What I ate. How long I used the library Wi-Fi. What job I applied for. I listed every rejection with a date and a note like, too slow at typing or didn't fit store image. It became a ritual. Record. Retry. Survive. The first frost hit in late October. My breath clouded the windshield before dawn. I layered a scarf around my head like I used to when shoveling the driveway, except there was no driveway now, no porch light, no ceramic mug waiting by the stove. One morning, I woke to a soft tapping on my window. A man in a reflective vest handed me a folded slip of paper. You can't stay here overnight. Management. I nodded. Lips pressed tight. He didn't look angry, just tired of being the one to deliver the message. I moved to a different lot that night, somewhere near a closed Kmart with a view of a dry field. I ate a can of lentil soup in silence and turned off my phone to save battery. The stars looked harsh through the windshield, like they were watching me fail politely. The next day, I drove to the library as usual and logged onto the last computer near the window. I opened my inbox, expecting ads and more rejection emails. Instead, one subject line caught my eye, blank. With no sender name, I clicked, and everything changed. The message began simply, Dear Ms. Belmar, we are reaching out on behalf of the estate of Miss Lena Malloy. I blinked twice. The name stirred something faint, a childhood summer. The scent of oil paint, a laugh that always lingered too long. Lena had been my mother's cousin. She showed up to a family reunion once in a crushed velvet dress and no shoes. She gave me a watercolor set and called me the kind one. That was the last time I saw her. The email was from a law firm in Northern California. They claimed Lena had passed away 2 months ago and named me as sole beneficiary of her estate. It listed an address in Santa Rosa, a small house, a citrus grove, some liquid assets. Some liquid assets. I stared at that line until the screen blurred. The librarian passed behind me, wheeling a cart of hardbacks. I minimized the window quickly, half expecting the whole thing to disappear the moment I looked away. But when I returned to it, the email was still there, real, still marked unread, still offering something that felt far too big for someone living in her car. I wrote back. Within 2 hours, a man named Daniel Crisp called me. His voice was calm, clipped, and unshakably professional. He confirmed everything. Lena Malloy had passed of natural causes. No surviving children, no spouse. Her will was direct, uncontested, and final. You're entitled to her residence in Santa Rosa, valued at $745,000, he said, and approximately $400,000 in liquid assets, post-tax and fee adjusted. There are also several small investment accounts you'll be briefed on in person. I didn't speak. I could barely breathe. Ms. Belmar, I'm here. Would you like to arrange a visit to inspect the property? I nodded, then remembered he couldn't see me. Yes. I said, please. We scheduled it for the following week. He offered to arrange transportation and lodging. I declined the Hotel Pride. I think, but accepted the plane ticket. I'd never been west of Nebraska. After we hung up, I sat staring at the screen, heart still thudding. Someone had remembered me, not out of obligation, not out of pity, but out of choice. I left the library and drove not to the grocery lot or the Kmart lot, but to the city park. I watched kids run across the grass with mittens dangling from coat sleeves. I closed my eyes and tried to remember the last time I'd felt chosen. That night, I slept with my phone clutched in one hand, the email open again and again just to prove it hadn't vanished. I didn't tell Haley, not yet. I wasn't ready to explain what it meant to be remembered by someone you'd nearly forgotten. The next morning, I packed what little I owned into 2 canvas bags, threw away the rest, and folded a scarf around my neck like armor. Then I drove toward the airport, toward a house I'd never seen. in a town where no one knew I'd once lived in my car. The air in Santa Rosa smelled like citrus and eucalyptus, even through the rental car window. It felt softer somehow, less defensive, as I pulled up to 1385 Alder Street. I wasn't sure what I expected, maybe boarded windows or tangled weeds, but what greeted me was a house that looked waiting, not abandoned, not neglected, just paused. The front porch sagged slightly on one side, and the paint on the shutters had faded to a gentle gray-green. Still, it stood solid, with the kind of dignity that didn't ask to be noticed. I unlocked the door slowly. Inside, the light was golden and low, filtered through linen curtains. Dust floated in it, undisturbed. There were books everywhere stacked on windowsills, under chairs, in woven baskets. The furniture looked handmade sturdy, curved edges, worn smooth by use. On the mantel, a single framed photograph. Lena, unmistakably older than I remembered, beaming at a woman with short silver hair. On the back, in Lena's handwriting, Me and Dee Spring 2006. Best season of my life. I didn't know who Dee was, but something in Lena's smile, unrestrained, weightless, made me wonder if she'd found the kind of companionship I'd quietly stopped hoping for years ago. I opened the windows one by one, breathing in air that didn't come through a cracked car window. Then I unpacked my 2 canvas bags, 1 pair of jeans, 2 shirts, a journal, and a quilt my mother made when I was 20. I folded it over the back of the couch and stood staring at it for a long time. The next morning, I met Mrs. Valdez. She was pruning lavender along the fence line when I stepped outside. 71, she told me proudly, with knees that complained but still bent when they had to. Her eyes welled up when I introduced myself. She talked about you. She said, Lena, not often, but when she did, it was with real affection. We sat on the porch drinking instant coffee out of mugs she brought over. She told me Lena was generous and particular, that she once grew lemons too bitter to eat but refused to cut the tree down, that she'd loved classical music and terrible crime novels, that she'd left wine and sticky notes for the mail carrier during lockdown. She was odd, Mrs. Valdez said, smiling, but she was kind. You could feel safe near her. I didn't cry, but something in me softened. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be spoken to instead of handled. In the days that followed, I swept, sorted, aired out. I found Lena's apron still hanging behind the kitchen door and left it there. I kept her stack of used candles and her chipped teapot. I moved my mother's quilt to the bedroom, where afternoon sun made its faded stitching glow. I didn't tell Haley, not when she sent a photo of Emma with a new tricycle, not when she texted, I had a dream you were at our house again funny. Right, not when she followed up with, we're thinking about moving. Bigger place. I typed replies. Short ones. Nothing about where I was, because for the first time in months, my silence wasn't a burden to carry. It was a room to rest in, and I wasn't ready to let anyone else inside just yet. The message came on a Tuesday morning, just as I was trimming the rosemary bush by the porch. We found cheap tickets to visit. Frank has days off. Thought we'd see your new place. No dates, no question mark. Just an announcement, as if they were visiting a family cabin or a public park. I stared at the screen a moment before replying. Okay, let me know when you land. They arrived that Friday. Haley stepped off the plane in a maxi dress that barely hid her second pregnancy. She looked tired, but determined. A woman who had already decided how the weekend would unfold. Frank trailed behind her, wheeling 2 suitcases and checking his phone. I spotted them before they saw me and took a moment to breathe in the small power of watching without being watched. Mom Haley called, waving like we were at a reunion instead of a reset. I hugged her gently and nodded toward Frank. "Welcome to California. The air's so different here," she said as we walked toward the car. "Miles lighter. You must feel so relaxed." I didn't respond. Instead, I helped load their bags into the trunk of my used Prius clean. Well kept. Paid for in full. At dinner. Haley admired the house. "This place is adorable. It feels like it was meant for someone like you, creative. Quiet. A little quirky." Miles nodded. "It has great bones. And that sunroom could make a great nursery." Just saying. I smiled and took a sip of water. They didn't notice the pause. Later, while clearing the dishes, Haley lingered behind. "Frank and I have been talking. If things don't settle after the baby, maybe we stay a while, just until we figure out the next step." She said it like a suggestion, but her eyes said expectation. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and looked at the clock. "You're tired. Let's get you back to the hotel." She blinked. Once. Then smiled like she hadn't expected a redirect. On the ride over, they talked about their house hunt in Ohio, how mortgage rates were unfair, how family was the only real support system. Miles mentioned how lucky I was to land in something like this at your age. "It's rare." I nodded. "It is." When I dropped them off, they left their bags in the trunk. Haley turned to me on the curb. "We'll grab those tomorrow. Too tired to unpack tonight." I watched them walk into the hotel lobby like they already belonged somewhere they hadn't been invited. When the glass doors shut behind them, I drove back to Alder Street alone. The boxes still rattling in the back. They sat under the oak tree in the backyard, sipping lemonade like they'd lived there for years. Haley rested one hand on her belly, the other stirring ice with a straw. Miles had taken off his shoes and stretched his legs across the lounge chair. Haley glanced at me, casual as breath. We were wondering, "Would you be open to a small family loan?" I didn't answer right away. She took that as permission to continue. "Just something to help with the down payment. Nothing crazy. 50,000, maybe 60. We'd pay it back after Miles's next bonus." "It's really just a timing issue." Miles nodded. "We're not asking for a gift. It's an investment. For the family. For the family." I excused myself to refill the pitcher. In the kitchen, I stood still, watching the slow drip of condensation down the glass. Then I picked up my keys and drove straight to my attorney's office. Daniel Crisp greeted me with a quiet nod. "Everything all right?" "Ms. Belmar, I'd like to make some changes to the will," I said. He took out a folder and pen. "I want to leave the house to a scholarship fund for women over 50, starting over after losing everything. No bloodline clauses. No next of kin nonsense." He looked up, surprised. "Do you have a name for the fund? Call it the Lena Fund." She understood what starting over meant. That evening, I stopped by the hardware store 2 towns over. I bought a new deadbolt, one with a long steel core and no shortcut pin. The man behind the counter gave me a quiet nod when I slid it across the register. Back at Alder Street, I worked slowly, following the instructions on the side of the box. Each turn of the screwdriver felt deliberate, final. By the time I tested the new lock with the key, the sky had gone purple. I stood there for a long while, hand on the knob, listening to the quiet hum of my own house settling in. Inside, I folded the old key into an envelope and left it in the drawer with Lena's will. Then I walked room to room, touching each wall like a prayer. No one had to know what I'd done. Not yet. The boxes were still in the car, but I no longer had to carry them. I set the mugs out before they arrived, careful not to overdo it. Just coffee, cream, and a small plate of lemon cookies I hadn't made for them. The door stayed closed behind me. I waited on the porch. Haley walked up first, belly forward, face cautious. Miles followed with his hands in his pockets, and something rehearsed in his posture. "This is nice," she said, easing into the chair across from me. Miles didn't sit right away. "So, about what we discussed?" I held up a hand. "I'd rather talk out here." He blinked, then sat slowly. "We're just trying to build something solid for our kids. Isn't that what family's for?" I looked down at my mug, then up at them both. "You said sleep in your car," I said quietly. "So I did. And now, this is my home. You don't get to live in it when it's convenient." Haley's face flushed. "That's not fair." "No," I said. "You didn't act like family when I had nowhere to go. You sent photos of Emma's tricycle while I slept behind a grocery store." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't respond. Miles shifted, looked at his watch. "I didn't ask them to stay longer. I didn't walk them to the car. They stood eventually, murmured something polite, and made their way down the path. I stayed where I was, cup warm in my hand, as the late sun touched the rosemary bush beside me, and the wind moved gently through the citrus leaves. The living room filled slowly with voices and the smell of fresh bread. My first book club night. Mrs. Valdez brought wine in a paper bag, and 3 neighbors brought folding chairs without being asked. I set out small plates, lemon cookies again, and a pitcher of water with mint leaves I'd grown by the back step. The conversation was easy, the kind that loops and spills and lands somewhere warm. We didn't talk about past lives, just the pages in front of us, and what it means to find yourself later than you thought you would. After everyone left, I walked back into the living room and stared at the quilt I'd hung earlier that morning. My mother's stitches, faded and frayed, catching the light just right. I'd almost left it folded in the closet. But something about tonight made me want to mark the space, to claim it. The next day, I met with the attorney again. I told him I wanted the foundation paperwork drawn up. Scholarships for women over 50 starting over. We named it the Lena Malloy Foundation. He asked if I wanted a tagline for the site. I said, "No, let the stories speak." That evening, I sat on the porch with tea and watched the sky shift into coral and slate. My phone buzzed. "Love you, Mom." I stared at the message for a long time. Typed a reply, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Then I turned the phone over, face down on the armrest, and let the silence settle. They'll never know what I could have given them, but I know what I kept for myself.